Hello friends! Welcome back to my homestead classroom. My name is Kim and it is Snowpocalypse 2022 here in Michigan, Zone 6A. And so I thought today would be a great day to talk about one of my favorite subjects when it comes to gardening, which is seeds. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and just say up front this is going to be a part 1 and 2 series. This will be part 1 where I talk about all the different ways you can acquire seeds, seed catalogs, what to look for as you're shopping, and also how I store my seeds. And then in part 2, I'll do an unboxing of all of my seed orders and kind of a review of each of the companies that I purchased from. Got so many seeds. I have a seed village. And just kind of give a review of all of them so you can maybe take that info and use it to pick which companies you're going to shop with. So let's go ahead and get started. Move these out of the way first since they kind of want to avalanche all over me. Alright, so got some nice hot tea here because it is really cold outside and I've had way too much coffee. Go ahead and get yourself something nice and hot and get settled in because we'll be here for just a little bit. It's kind of a lot of crash course info to go over, so let's get started. So you've decided you want to grow from seed with your garden. Awesome. It can be a really, really rewarding experience. Lots of information with regards to starting from seed. So this will be just kind of a condensed crash course in things to know, watch out for, how to interpret your seed catalogs if you decide to shop that route, just to give you kind of some basic info to get started. So first off, where can you get seeds? Basically any seed that you can get your hands on, I think is a viable option. So if all you can get is the, dollar pack or 50-cent packs from the dollar store near you, cool. They're seeds. Seeds want to be plants. Go ahead and plant them. If you did like I did and signed up for any free seed catalog that you could get a hold of online and had it mailed to your house, you'll end up with a nice big stack of them as soon as the New Year rolls around. I think the first one I got was right before New Year's Eve. And that's a really fun way to kind of spend the really cold months in the dead of winter when nothing's growing and shop for seeds in these vibrantly colored catalogs. But you can also go online and tons of these catalogs. There's also a website and you can do all your shopping on there. Nowadays, a lot of seed companies will also have certain items only available for purchase online, so they might mention it in their catalog, but you have to go to the website. So if internet access is something you don't have, don't worry. You can also typically order from catalogs over the phone or via fax if that's something available to you. I haven't seen a company yet that doesn't offer those options, so that's a good way to find them. You can also save seeds from things. I, last year in my 2021 garden, successfully grew a jalapeno plant from seeds that I saved out of a regular, conventionally grown, so not organic, jalapeno that I bought at Meijer, and just scooped the seeds out of. It wasn't particularly ripe. I mean, it was just a normal jalapeno. Saved the seeds, and it was a very, very hardy plant and gave me a lot last year. So that was, something I saved the seeds from. Worked perfectly. Really, the only thing I would say in terms of where not to get your seeds from, give anything a go except for Wish and similar kind of sites, because a lot of times they're advertised as something that they're not going to actually end up being plant-wise. There's no guarantee. And there's also a danger of there being, I've heard of people having received seeds for plants that end up being invasive in their area and now they're just dealing with it. So I would caution against Wish. Etsy can be okay. Read reviews. That's really what it'll come to. If you have an Etsy shop that specializes in plant seeds, they're known for it. They have tons of reputable reviews and people have successfully grown the seeds they've received from them. I'd be much more apt to do that, but definitely be cautious when it comes to Wish and those kind of sites. I personally would stick to companies that are seed companies, because then you can also get a hold of them if you have any questions about something you purchased from them, or maybe get recommendations if they're located in your zone or area, something like that. So you've decided you want to shop for seeds, you've got an idea of where to look for them, so kind of how do you shop for seeds? Because once you start looking at all there is out there, it can get pretty overwhelming. I mean, you've got some catalogs that are like a nice small kind of Reader's Digest size, but then I also ordered the Baker Creek catalog this year, which is darn near a coffee table book. Granted, it's absolutely gorgeous, but there's so much info out there that it can be pretty overwhelming if you're not really used to deciphering a seed catalog. So right off the top, what's important is to understand the 4 terms: GMO, hybrid, open pollinated, and heirloom. The first thing, GMO, a lot of people just kind of have a gut response. GMO seeds are never, ever, 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 ever going to be available to you as a home gardener, as a consumer. Almost all seed packs that you're going to buy from the grocery store, Dollar Tree, from these seed catalogs, it'll say on the seed package that they're non-GMO. The companies will say somewhere on their magazine sometimes that we're non-GMO, proud to be. It's illegal for them to provide GMO seeds to anybody except for commercial farmers. GMO seeds are something that are highly controlled by the company that produces them. Monsanto is an example. There's contracts involved with the farmers that are going to grow those seeds, and the quantities that they're supplied in are completely impractical for home gardeners. They're never going to put GMO seeds in a teeny tiny little seed packet of like 25 tomato seeds and send it to someone. It's just not financially practical for the producer of those GMO seeds. They're looking to sell them in bulk. If you want to fight the battle against GMO, if that's something that you're passionate about or looking into or whatever, that's a fight that you typically fight at the grocery store when it comes to purchasing your food, anything packaged. Corn is an example of a really highly used GMO crop, and so looking out for things that use that corn at the grocery store in the ingredients list, that's where the GMO fight is going to be fought. So if that's what you want to do, more power to you. Just know that that is not going to be something you have to worry about when it comes to purchasing seeds from any of these home gardener seed resources. The next term is hybrid. So I like to think of hybrid plants as, in the simplest terms, just like how we breed dogs. So if you have a purebred Labrador Retriever and a purebred Poodle, and you breed them together, you get a Labradoodle. That Labradoodle is the hybrid. If you then breed that Labradoodle to another dog, the offspring that they have will be more of a mixed bag, less of a pure breed. That's kind of how plant breeding also works. So plants will be bred together for a different purpose. Tomatoes are a great example because there's so much variety in the DNA, the genome of the tomato species. There's a lot of different traits to breed for. Different colors, different shapes, different sizes, if it's juicy, if it's better to make paste, whatever. Hybrid tomato plants are often bred for a specific, say, quantity of yield or disease resistance or pest resistance. And the fact that it's labeled as a hybrid doesn't mean it's inferior in any way. Oftentimes a hybrid plant is going to provide that, what they call hybrid vigor. That added DNA in the mix helps to get a more vigorous offspring that will be healthier. So when you're talking about plants, a hybrid plant might provide you with something that you've been battling in your garden for a really long time and want to make sure that, say, you get a certain yield. The next 2 terms, open pollinated and heirloom, really come into play and matter when you want to save the seeds from those plants and plant them and get an exact same plant as you just saved the seed from. So for example, if I have a specific kind of tomato in my garden that I really love, I want to be able to save a seed out of it and keep it and grow it next year, and I want to get the same kind of tomato. Like, it was a bomb paste tomato, I made a ton of sauce out of it, I want to do the same thing next year. I need to make sure that either it's an open pollinated or heirloom variety. both of those terms mean the same thing with regard to the fact that the seed can be saved and make the same plant. Heirlooms are just older. So an open pollinated variety is something that has been created through hybridization, taking two different varieties, mixing them together, taking that baby plant, and then you keep doing that for successive generations until you get what's called a stable hybrid. And when you can save the seed out of that hybrid and reliably, consistently get the same plant over and over, that's when it becomes open pollinated. And as soon as that open pollinated variety gets to around 50 years old, is kind of the overall accepted number. It's kind of a loose definition, but that's when it's considered heirloom. All heirlooms are open pollinated. Not all open pollinated are yet heirlooms. See the difference? So really, don't have to worry about GMO. If you like the thought of saving seeds, make sure they're open pollinated or heirloom. But other than that, really, if your focus is just getting a good garden going, you can get hybrids, you can get open pollinated, it doesn't matter. So you've got a general idea now of kind of how those categories work, and you want to start looking at varieties. Well, you'll start to see a number of days listed for how long it'll take for that plant to produce food that you can pick and eat. And depending on what you're looking at, that's going to be a big difference. So like radishes will take around a month from I planted the seed to I'm picking a radish to eat. When you're looking at beans that are supposed to be consumed as dry beans, you need to plant those, allow them to produce their pods, and then leave them alone until basically the plant dies back and the pods shrivel, and that's when the beans are ready to be picked and harvested. That's going to take a heck of a lot longer than a radish. So knowing your number of growing days before you start looking into seeds is really important. Really easy to do. You figure out by just Googling, your town or your nearest city, first frost date, which will be in the fall, when the first frost in the fall comes, and your last frost date, so that'll be in the spring, and figure out the number of days between those two over the course of the summer. So mine here is around about 150 days. So I know that if anything takes longer than 150 days, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get harvest out of it. So I'm going to focus on varieties that I know I'll be able to start inside, transplant, and still get a good amount of harvest off of them. If you want to do things like succession sowing, or you want to do a spring and then a summer and then a fall garden, taking that number of growing days into account is going to be really important in your planning. So just again, it's figuring out your last frost date in the spring, your first frost date in the fall, and how many days in between. And you can literally just Google that, how many days between this day and this date. You don't even have to do any math if you don't want to. Going into seed shopping with a minimal idea of kind of what you want to plant in your garden is a good idea. Also, just kind of check yourself and see what it is you need for growing purposes versus what it is you want to collect. I will put a big caution out here that growing seeds and collecting seeds, I have realized, are completely different genres of hobby. I just happen to be into both of them. I'll share with you my method that I used this year. This was my first big year ordering from this many companies, and it was more or less just like I wanted to get an idea of all of these different companies and start figuring out which ones are like my personal favorites. Everybody's got kind of the ones they're married to, and I just wanted to see. So my method is kind of a few different steps. I first will come up with a dream list, and that's just the really nice, oh, it's a winter day, let me get a cup of coffee, and just a Sharpie, and go through the entire catalog and circle everything that I want. Just everything that I want. I actually this year just kind of put bunny ears on the pages, and then I go back through, and I'm extra. I realize this. So this is my method, and if there's any part of this that's too much for you, cool, skip it. I just tend to want a lot, and so I need to make it visible to myself just how much I was wishing for, so I can kind of rein myself back in. So I went through So True Seeds and did all my circling, and then I wrote down my dream list, and my dream list was almost all of this page and the back of this one, and I did that with all 9 of these catalogs. So some of them, like the Baker Creek, I mean, it's such a large catalog, and their pictures are so appealing that I made 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of my dream list, and that obviously didn't happen because I don't got that kind of money. So step 1 is just dream. Just get an idea and go through all of them and see what they've got, and come up with those lists. And then I actually take those handwritten lists, I compare them to each other. So if I have something that's on, you know, say borage, I know I need borage this year, and I know basically all of these companies sell it. So I went and price compared to see who's giving me the most seeds for the least amount of money, and crossed it off all of the other lists and left it on that one that won out. And then I'll also take those lists, and I like going back through all of my seeds. So that was a whole other day of just comparing my lists that I'm looking to get with what I already have, because especially with flowers, I don't necessarily remember every specific variety of something that I've got, so just making sure I'm not going to order something I already have. So once I've got my list, I've crossed out everything that's multiples, I'm not going to, you know, order anything I've already got. I then take that and sit in front of the computer and go on the websites for each of these companies and come up with my wish list. It took me over a week for this part of the process to just kind of lazily in front of the TV, add everything to my cart, and do it for each of these before making any purchases, so I could see a dollar amount. And that Baker Creek one was really, really big, so that was like, okay, we're gonna pare this one back. Once I saw the lists that I had and how big my dreams were, I gave myself a budget of not being able to spend more than $40 per company, and that's still a lot of money. And I realized that this is definitely something that's more in the hobby category for me in terms of my budget. So what it forced me to do was go back to each one of those tabs I had open with my full cart of seeds and pare down, what do I really want right now? So whatever I subtracted out of my cart, I circled on my list, and, you know, I ordered my seeds for this year and to stock up my collection and whatever, but I've also got those lists, and I'm going to just keep them for kind of the rest of the year. And what I can do then is with any birthday money, or I want to treat myself or whatever, I can go back and order anything that I wanted but wasn't able to get. Having those lists is also really handy in case I want to do any seed swapping or like seed exchange with people. There's tons of resources online. If whatever social media group you decide to use, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, all of those have seed swap groups. You can find things local to you. I know a lot of public libraries will oftentimes have a seed library as well, and all of them have different rules. So that's kind of just a basic overview of ordering seeds and stuff like that. And so, cool, you've got your seeds. Now what about storing them if you've got more than you're going to plant in a specific given year? First, seeds don't expire. They will have a decline in germination rate. That means the number of seeds that will actually sprout and give birth to a plant might lessen over time. For your first year or two of gardening, you don't have to worry about that. Just save your seeds. Whatever you don't use this year, you can use next year. Just gotta make sure you store them in a cool, dark, dry place. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. There's ideal, and then there's what we can do. So I'm gonna show you what I can do and what has worked for me where I'm living now. Shoe boxes. I have grown from 2 to, these were the original 2, and now I have 5 shoe boxes for my seed collection. And my shoe boxes live in my closet on the shelf. My closet is an interior closet. It doesn't have any exterior walls. However, it's kind of poorly insulated, especially underneath, and it's actually pretty cool in the closet as long as we keep the door shut. So between that, being in these, it's not getting exposed to drastic changes in temperatures, it's not getting exposed to dampness, it's not getting exposed to sunlight. So I'm pretty confident that these seeds will remain viable for a really long time. If you have packets of seeds that you don't finish and you want to save for next year, sometimes they'll have a gummy kind of material on them that will stick to itself, but sometimes they don't. And so my recommendation, what has worked well for me, is what's called washi tape. It's something that is designed to be stuck and restuck without leaving any adhesive behind. So it's perfect for seeds, seed packets, because you can open and close them multiple times. W-A-S-H-I, yep, washi tape. Highly recommend that. And as far as in the shoe boxes go, I just use Ziploc bags. So as my collection grows, I can just separate and use new bags. So at first I just had one bag for herbs, but then I started getting into having enough annual and perennial that I was able to separate those out into their own separate Ziploc baggies. Same thing with like leafy things. So this whole box appears to be my cold weather stuff, but I've got like an etc. category, lettuce that comes to a head, kale specifically because there's so many different varieties, lettuce that's typically just leaf lettuce, spinach, again there's so many varieties, it gets its own baggie. So this is what's worked for me. I know that a lot of people have hopped on the train of using the photo organizers that you can get. It's like a plastic briefcase that you open, and there is plastic individual snap cases all nicely arranged inside. And I believe you can get them at like Marshall's or Joann, you know, those kind of Hobby Lobby. But if you don't want to or can't spend the money, or you don't want to, like if you're in the more zero waste mindset, this is a completely viable option. I had these first two boxes I've had for years. I had a pair of shoes that I got years ago. I used this box when I moved and just repurposed it. And then I cleaned house for a few families, and both of these were going to go into the recycling, so I just decided to take them home and give them a new life. So, you know, it doesn't have to take a ton of money to get started with this. If you want to get the seed collecting going, there's tons of different ways that you can go about it. Just figuring out what works for you is really the key. Just making sure that they are stored in a cool, dark, dry place. For the most part, I don't like freezing my seeds because taking them in and out of the freezer could cause condensation of just the moisture that's in with the seeds in their packaging. And that's going to be the kind of environment that will degrade my seeds, so I don't want to expose them to that. So that's what I've got for part one, and I really encourage you to just see what's out there in terms of seeds. When I started really looking through different seed catalogs was when I really started to open my eyes to how many varieties of things are out there, and I really started to understand how conditioned I was to grocery store food. There's not only one type of carrot, there's not only one type of tomato or eggplant. Lettuce can be more than green. It's kind of mind-boggling, and to me very romantic and appealing, and that's part of what drives me to garden, is seeing the variety that I have access to when I do it at home by myself. Tons of watermelon will say on the packaging that they don't ship well, and farmers, for example, would save these for home eating, and they're delicious, you know, and that's what I'm looking for. So in order to kind of get that flavor and that romantic, colorful lettuce basket or variety of carrots, you may need to grow from seed, and so it's a really fun kind of adventure to start out on. It can be a really fun path to go down, and can also be a whole entire hobby that takes over a part of your closet. But that's alright. So thanks so much for hanging out with me talking about seeds, and I really hope you'll stick around for part two while we unbox my seed orders.